Good afternoon, or what is a warm, bright and sunny day. It is Tuesday, April 4th. Got a nice hot cup of tea. And a book to unbag. Sorry, not all of them come by the post. So, this is Gangs of Titan City. It is, let's have a look, published, I believe, by SoulMuppet. Okay. Gangs of Titan City is a grimdark future role-playing game from SoulMuppet Publishing, thrusting its characters into a nightmare super city that wants them dead. Gangs of Titan City casts your players as desperate gutter scum who will soon dominate the underworld as crime lords or end up dead. Gangs of Titan City uses simple and flexible 2d6 designed to be intuitive and fast-moving. The dice provide tools to players and narrator to craft compelling stories about gangs who claw their way to towering heights and sometimes fall to terrifying depths. The game comes with a toolbox of gang archetypes, gang member playbooks, rules for arcane and unknowable tech, sector hex map generation tools, and a rogues gallery to cautiously deal and ferociously battle with. So the first thing you kind of get the feel for is it's an old Games Workshop role-playing, a miniature game called Necromunda, which is about gangs basically fighting and surviving in a towering, basically in the undercity of a towering spire. Now I didn't get a role-playing game because Games Workshop doesn't do role-playing games, of course, at least not itself, it licenses them out. So here we have to say the spires of Plutogia climb to the heavens, and that its highest levels stretch beyond the atmosphere. You would never know. Those places are better for better people than you. Titan City sags under the weight of rust and smog. It's wide and deep. Its tunnels dug into the crust, searching for rare earth metals and esoteric alloys, all to feed a war machine far across the stars that probably doesn't even exist. It's hard to know where the industry ends and the ruin begins. It is savage and violent. No one's ever seen the people in charge. Their peons starve. There are no laws here, not in the Undercity, and you just like that. Fine. So Gangs of Titan City is a game of desperate outcasts and criminals fighting tooth and nail to claw something for themselves from the decaying industrial ruins of Titan City. It's a game of taking what you can, giving nothing back, and facing the inevitable consequences of your actions. It's a game where you and the other players create a world as you go and lose yourselves within it. Okay. So you've got the idea essentially that you almost play you play as you create, or you create as you play. So the key components of play to find out, be bold, face the consequences, create the world you want. These rules are now yours, and play safely. So good advice, and that gets you the feel of the tone of the game. Play to find out, be bold, face the consequences, and so on. Create the world you want. Those are the tenets of play, in particular. But then saying, also, this is now your book, and play safe. I mean, just good. That's the standard advice. So we've got a Titan City primer, and you're going to be down here somewhere. Here are the main aspects of the city. So you have enforcers, data brains, gangs, technology, psionics. All the elements are there to play with before we're getting into getting started and playing as a gutter. Essentially, your character in the game is known as a gutter. As the game progresses, the gutters grow in power and influence, becoming better equipped and able to achieve their goals. So this is all about creating a gutter. So taking through the step-by-step process, introducing how it's done, and then rules for playing as a gang, and essentially community your gutter, and those of the other players belong to a gang. As play progresses, your gang expand the areas that they control, their membership, and the resources they can bring to bear. This section introduces key concepts related to part of being a gang. Essentially, each play session of Gangs of Titan is called a cycle, and it progresses through three phases. So you have escalation phase, where you start with a few vignettes about the gutters' lives, switching to the gang's preparations for the next operation phase, The operations in the main action area of each cycle, where the gang perform a high-stakes mission, either to seize a claim or asset, or preemptively deal with a looming consequence. Fallout phase is where you take stock of the spoils and the consequences of their actions. So you've got the first, then you're working through basically the first steps for both the player and the game master. And making a gang, whether it's dealing with consortiums, cultists, enclaves, overlords, and so on. Section will guide you through creating a gang step by step, providing guidance on how to make your decisions. So you've got different kind of factions, different types of options. So consortiums, cults, archetypes. And cult can have the cult, of course, is a patron, which grants them gifts. Enclaves, the dispossessed and the outcasts. So you could play this more than once, with different gangs, mercenaries, war dogs, and guns for hire. Operatives, saboteurs, and infiltrators. Overlords, tyrants, and conquerors. And then on to making a gutter. So you've got different classes, and it's taking you through a step-by-step process, choosing contact, arrival, specialisms, what you can do. Your approach modifies on how you what is your approach to undertaking a task. So yeah, you've got sort of like a range there. And they get to know each other. You introduce the characters, introduce themselves to each other, and then we have a character creation example. So, having told you how to do it, and then they show you how to do it, and I'm always in favour of that. So we've got the different classes, aberration, and in each one you've got aspects. Bulging muscles, inhuman eyes, that sort of thing. Personality, specialisms, aberration gear, origins, contacts, and options for advancements. Broker, so deal maker and handshake, and it's going to do exactly the same for each one. Bruiser, marksman, mastermind, scientist. So it's getting a little bit weirder, that's fine. And basically working through the options and a culture, sort of like, and the role of sewing, like seen here, with more detail. Spectre, unseen hand, knife in the back, so you'll sneak. Technomancer. So this does have a kind of sort of like Necromunda, far future kind of techno shock kind of feel to it. And here we have different options, talking about the gutter rules. So rules for a gutter. So all the different approaches, core test. So full success 10 or more, partial success 7 to 9, result 6 or lower is a failure, and it's kind of very not dissimilar to the impression I'm getting is saying it's like Powered by the Apocalypse, but you've got a bit more control of how and sort of like how you create character. Okay, then we go on to damage, trauma, how specialisms work in the game, combat, because essentially as a gang you're definitely going to get into combat. So fighting without weapons, not recommended probably. We've got an example of combat. So how does that work? Loadout, armor, equipment, weapons. And pharma serums, essentially the drugs and things that you can use to enhance yourself, fix yourself. and then human alteration, whether that's through psionics, or cybernetic automation, augmentations, or gene mods. You've all got to pay for these. Psionic disciplines, so a list of those for your psionic characters. And then rules for gangs, so we've got contacts and rivals, assets and claims. So assets and how you're connected to them, how they're organised. So you've actually got like an acquisition web which you build up of of how your assets are connected. Claims, they're the physical things you own on the ground, and you've got lists of sort of like basically locations within the Undercity, whether that's luxury venues, training grounds, oil well, or anything like that. Experience points for your gang, list of hardships that your gang might face. For example, watched or making every bullet count, spread thin, because it's not necessarily going to go your way. Features for your hideout for your gang. Archetypes for squads, building with in particular for your gangs. And then we basically talking about how the game is played. We're talking about the cycle of play, so escalation phase, operations phase, fallout phase, and how each is handled. Second phase, operation, and then the fallout. Danger table to bring into play threats and so on. Managing your danger table, essentially what are you facing right now, how is it escalating against you, and then we get on to advice for the narrator. Managing factions, not just the player characters' gangs, but other threats. Example jobs which the player characters can take on, the gang can take on. Leads, which they can follow up. Sector flavouring, how to make each sector feel different. Then we've got creating new assets which they can attempt to obtain, and then there's a Titan City guide, a bit short before we get into generating your campaign, starting your campaign, setting up with factions, and then the dynamic, the kind of the feel for it. And then we've got examples. And then the actual play locations, the sectors, how to connect them, how to generate them. So we've got a random sector generator. Types of subsectors, going to go detail into that. And then whether they are heart-wise or spire-wise, basically depending upon the direction they lie in, away from the player character's gang and its hideout. Fringe-way sectors. And I'm also, to some extent, reminded of, there was a kind of a gang-based play-by-mail game during the 80s. That we were all into, which was a way to play when you weren't actually gaming around the table. So you get other gangs that the player character gangs might encounter, have to deal with, and then Plutonia's finest, which is the cops and so on, Sector 7 Brewers Guild, the Dynasty, sort of just factions and so on you bring into play. So lots of these different ones here, that really going to sort of like present the player characters with something different to encounter. So yeah, lots and lots in here. Quite impressed by this. If you faction relationships, before we get into a description of the city of Plutopia, you sort of like there's a lot here to play with, a lot here to kind of set up a campaign that and really explore sort of like what would be a Gangs of Plutopia kind of campaign, and question is, are there monsters or aliens? Well, I think that's ultimately up to the game master to decide. But they're not written in. That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, that is Gangs of Titan City, published by SoulMuppet Games. I think it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be a different kind of play and feel, with sort of like differently structured phases of play. As your gang sort of like progresses and attempts to build its power and its reputation. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, do please click on the like button down below, and of course if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here typically with a package containing a book or game, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching. Be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.